Hi, I'm Brien Lundin with Gold Newsletter of Gold Newsletter, and I'm here at in Stillwater, Minnesota, at the inaugural Minerals Are the Future conference event put on by Big Rock Industries, of which my guest here, Rob Bergmann, is a co-founder and principal of, and we're here to talk about Relevant Gold, which is your baby. You're a co-founder of that as well and CEO. And I don't, when I first heard the story, what was it, about 18 months ago or something like that, maybe 2 years now.
2 years ago at MIF, I think.
Yeah, in Vancouver, I heard the story and I immediately latched onto it, did a little due diligence because it's the kind of a story you need to do a little due diligence on. But the way I expressed it to my readers is I don't know of a junior exploration story that offers quite this much upside. And to put it in simple terms, you are looking for the U.S. offset of the entire or significant portion of the legendary Abitibi Gold Belt in Canada, which all evidence points to has been broken off, turned around, and deposited in Wyoming. And because you were one of the first, your team was one of the first to recognize this, you have locked up essentially, at least what you believe, is the most prospective ground in that entire new belt that may end up being the American Abitibi. So I've been following the story for a couple of years. You've just gotten past a very important drill program for your company and one of your targets. And I was telling you I need to get an update, so I think this would be a great time for me to get an update live recorded for our audience so they can listen in as we do. So
yeah, definitely.
Let's recap the story from your standpoint, because I don't know if I have adequately presented the potential.
You did a wonderful job, Brian, and I appreciate it. And basically, you're right. It's a scientific thesis. It's based on data. It's based on literature. It's a tectonic reconstruction story. And really what that means is there's a lot of scientific evidence that does really show and point to these big shear belts cutting across Wyoming being connected to those Abitibi belts. Mm-hmm. But really the important part of that is they were still connected 2.7 billion years ago. And that was when all the gold came into those rocks. Right. And so you had all the gold introduced into these systems. And then 500 million years later, at about 2.1 billion years ago, you had that major orogenic event that rifted it off and kind of pulled these things apart. And it ended up in Wyoming. And that's why we ended up in Wyoming. That and, combining with the fact that it's one of the best jurisdictions globally to be operating in, we continue to see that evidenced by getting very streamlined permits and being able to continue to actively do our work.
And one of the things that I quickly found out was this is not some abstract theory, off-the-wall theory. There have been dozens of papers written on this, and you point to quite a listing of these papers.
Yeah, we put them in our corporate presentation, right? We're not trying to keep the literature and information to ourselves either. We encourage others to take a look and understand the validation of it. And even new publications coming out recently, just in last year.
And you're validating the theory.
Yeah, and we're validating the economic model that associates to that thesis continually, right? We're very much a technical and systematic focus group. So our goal is to truly do negative exploration. What do I mean by that? I mean, we're trying to disprove the thesis. That's our job. And if we can't, the evidence is continuing to support the thesis and prove that thesis out, which is what we've seen now for 5 consecutive years of exploration work across our portfolio. That's where things have really started to get exciting for us. And really, we've been able to leverage that into attracting very smart capital. We've been able to keep our share structure very tight over this down market. And all of this was very deliberate and tactical to kind of get ready for this market that we've entered into. As you're the gold newsletter and the gold guru, and we're finally seeing what you have been saying for years. The fundamentals and the technical analysis of the gold markets has been pointing to, and now it's happened. And it's just starting to kind of feel it into the equities. And so for us, as we've taken advantage of the last few years, we've been able to kind of systematically move that portfolio up the value curve. From when we started and launched the company and listed the company in 2022, we had 2 to 4 high grade targets on the map. across our portfolio.
Yeah.
Since then, our land position has more than doubled, and now we have 17 high-grade district-scale targets, right? We've drilled 4 of those now since 2022, basically 1 target a year, getting initial probe holes into. These have never been drilled before. So these were small initial programs to prove that the geology is right, that the model is supported, and that we have actually a mineralized system. And with that, we can start vectoring towards opportunity. So if we look at that and getting to kind of the update, last year we had a really big year, a couple important, foundational catalysts that happened early in the year. We had Kinross and Mr. Bill Bollinger both moved to 19.9% equity, strategic equity position in the company, really garnering and showing that long-term support for the vision as we continue to unlock this across the state of Wyoming. Further to that, that really helped us. We raised $8.5 million off the back of that. And that helped us go into this year with a robust drill program at Apex, but also simultaneously continuing to refine our drill targets across the portfolio. All of that was for the goal of 2026, where we plan to really ramp up our drilling aggressively.
Yeah, and you have a number of projects or properties across this newly emerging belt, and Bradley Peak is one of those, and the Apex target is one of those. Talk to us a bit, or bring us up to speed on the geophysical data that you've gotten, because I'm not a geologist, but I can look at the geophysics on that and see this tremendous structural fold hinge, which is just classic for focusing the gold-bearing fluids, and it just seems like the perfect target.
Yeah, so and Apex is one of 6 really great targets within that structural anomaly at Bradley Peak. And so again, staying with that systematic order of testing these. And you're absolutely right. The geophysics, this was actually a state-funded survey that was flown, no cost to our shareholders, but it covered our entire portfolio and everything in between. And it really not only highlighted some of these larger secondary structures that are typical traps for the gold mineralization, but it also shows that actual belt stretching now over 200 kilometers across the state.
Yeah.
And so you start combining these things and you think about how these are formed. Those big belt structures is what carries all that fluid in. Those tap into those gold-rich fluids deep in the Earth's crust and mantle. Once they get into the upper crust of rocks, that's where they look for those secondary structures. And that's where they can get trapped, have that opportunity to react with the host rock and precipitate out gold deposits. And so when we see all of those things coming together, and then the coincident geochemistry actually that has defined these targets, because our targets were defined through gold assays and detailed mapping and sampling prior to that survey coming out.
So that validated everything you had done before.
It really did, and it helped show that we had not only these high-grade exposures at surface, that this has system scale potential, very large
And they
scale
were
potential.
occurring in the offsetting structures along the
Main belt.
Main belt.
Yep, both at South Pass and at Bradley Peak.
Which is the same model that in the Abitibi.
Yep, exactly. And so actually our chief technical advisor, Dean Peterson, he did his PhD studying the Abitibi, Kirkland Lake, Timmins, and Hemlow camps. And he decisively was able to determine what structural features were trapping that gold. Pretty incredible paper, but was able to delineate that 98% of the gold across those 3 camps was specifically in these secondary structures within about 6 kilometers of the major belt.
And just to give our listeners and viewers an idea of the potential that we're talking about here, how much gold was produced from those in those camps?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at Timmins, Kirkland Lake, and Hemlow camps, when Dean did his PhD, which was in the late 80s into the early 90s, they had produced about 116.5 million ounces already out of those camps. And new discoveries, as we know, continue to be made across those belts in the Abitibi.
Dozens and dozens of discoveries, dozens and dozens of companies that were huge successes with those discoveries.
Yes, yep. And then you look at things like a little bit more extract from those belts, but up in the Red Lake camp, part of those systems, those big orogenic belt systems, you recently had that Great Bear buyout there where Kinross went in and bought out Great Bear Resources. So, excuse me, still continuing to find things along those belts, and that's what's got us so excited about Wyoming. You're in an area where you can operate. where you know you can get your permits you need. You look at U.S. Gold Corp, another one of the presenting companies here. They've been able to kind of defy odds as far as what people think about permitting in the United States. And a lot of that is because they're in Wyoming and it's such a favorable jurisdiction. You've got a community and a group in Wyoming that really wants to see their state prosper. They want to see more mines develop. People don't recognize Wyoming as such a big mining state, but it's some of the biggest coal deposits in this, in the United States. Trona, it is the primary producer of trona in the Western Hemisphere, not to mention the uranium and oil and gas. And as we look now to the metallogenic future, that's really where we've been focused, is applying this thesis to unlock these really high-grade, really large systems in Wyoming.
And it's a lot to chew on, because it is essentially one company. It is as if there was one company that had controlled a significant position in the entire Abitibi Gold Belt. That's the opportunity here. That's the kind of upside that we see here. So let's see where you are now. Give me that update on how the drilling has gone so far and what the market can expect.
Yeah, so we wrapped up our program as planned, finished everything pretty much on time and on budget. The team did an excellent job executing. And now keep in mind, Bradley Peak at Apex, first time we ever drilled there. So we had a lot of first-time infrastructure.
And big targets.
Yeah, big targets. And so that's the thing. With Apex, it's a 2.5-kilometer structure that we've mapped so far. We think it has potential to extend in both directions along strike. It looked like a near vertical system. So we went in with initial probe holes. We drilled 12 holes. We tested about 600 meters of that 2.5-kilometer strike. Along that strike, where we have outcrop, we have a lot of high-grade mineralization at surface, up to 46.8 grams per ton gold, 7.8% copper, 2% zinc. So very high grade and multi-metal. We've got the precious and the base critical metal signatures there, which we like to see. So seeing that big stretch, as well as some parallel structures that also showed mineralization opportunities, it was get in and just start testing the guts of the system. Is it a vertical system, right? We see it and we map it as this vertical system, which is very much what we'd expect as an Abitibi analog. Do we see the alteration and the structure extending at depth? Do we see veining and sulfide mineralization? These are all critical questions you're trying to answer on this first pass program. And we confidently were able to answer most of those questions. In our latest press release from when we finished up that program, we put out some of those observations. There is a large alteration envelope, 70 to 150 meters of hydrothermal alteration with associated quartz carbonate veining and some various remnant sulfides.
So the rocks are right.
The rocks are right. They are very much exactly what you'd expect as an Abitibi analog with these Archean greenstone belt rocks. And so what we're hoping for now is to get these assays in ASAP so that we can get that news out and really just start focusing on the follow-on program. We're already looking to ramp up to 20,000 meters, and now we'll get all this data in. You mentioned geophysics. We're also flying an airborne VTEM survey over Bradley Peak as well as over South Pass. Bradley Peak is actually part of a grant fund we received from the state of Wyoming. So again, just showing that continued support that we do see in the state of Wyoming. We got a $226,000 grant to fly an airborne VTEM survey there. And then recently we had our founders warrants that co-founder Brien Lundin, our chief exploration officer, and I executed. And as we executed those alongside us, Kinross and Bollinger also executed theirs. And so that put a lot more money into the treasury. We amplified our exploration program going into the fall winter, and we expanded that survey to South Pass. So we're going to have all these data sets coming in, as well as these rock chip samples in Lewiston. Lewiston's where we drilled in 2024, the Burr target. 6 of 6 holes intersected shear-hosted gold mineralization. So a really great initial first pass. And the geophysics started to tease out some structures along strike to the south. So Brien deployed a team to get out there, do some mapping and sampling. So we'll also have those results coming in as well as we look to understand more about how to allocate this next 20,000 meters. For the last 5 years, we've done a very regional approach. As I mentioned, it was really about building the pipeline of high-grade district-scale targets. We now have a lot of those to start testing as we look to this bull market.
It's really, pardon the pun, drilling down. And focusing and vectoring in on where you're going to find that mineralization. But getting the rocks right is the first most crucial step that makes everything else possible. It would be, it is difficult to find the high grade on your first one or two or few passes.
Yep.
But you do get the data you need to start vectoring.
You always get the data, and you always you hope and pray for high grade.
Right.
But being someone that's a scientific background myself and very technical and kind of more of a data analytic approach to how I approach problem solving, I look at statistics, and geostatistically, it's about 15,000 meters on average is what it takes to test one of these targets.
Yeah.
To really home in on, is there something there of scale and continuity and things like that. So we've drilled anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 meters into any one of these given targets. So for me to sit here and say we're going to hit it big on something that small, I'd have a lot of confidence in my luck, I guess, at that point. But at the end of the day, what we do need to see is we need to see gold mineralization. We need to see that there is gold mineralization in this system. So we do want to see the geology. We want to see the rocks, but we also want to see gold mineralization. And to date, that's what we've seen in every target we've drilled, and we're waiting on those results from Apex now.
Yeah, and the hit rate is remarkable.
Yep.
On your holes across untested targets. That's been pretty remarkable. You're seeing gold. You're not seeing the really high grade that you're looking for, that you want to eventually discover, but you are hitting what you are looking for.
Yeah, we are 100%. And we also have the high grade. A lot of people forget that our Golden Buffalo property, back then you didn't even know about Relevant Gold, right? During our listing, there was a 20-meter trench at Golden Buffalo that at surface produced almost 600 ounces of coarse gold. We followed up that program with our first ever drill program in 2022 that was congruent with our listing, and we drilled that shear zone, the Golden Buffalo shear zone, and actually intersected 3 meters at 28 grams per ton with 1 meter at 83.8 and visible gold in the veins. So that was a huge proof of concept and success right out the gate. Again, just looking back on the high grade systems, they're there, and we've already proven that. So it's exactly what we're at. We're vectoring in, and we're starting to focus. We're going from that regional focus to now focusing in on our best 1 or 2 targets next year, really giving them the right amount of drilling they need to prove them up, test them, push them through discovery, or move on to the next targets in the pipeline. And that's the whole way we've built and designed the company.
And I think it's important to, you mentioned it as well, the timing. It's happening right now. The market's supportive. Companies that aren't very good, that don't have that good of prospects, are able to get all the money they need to drill those prospects. A company like you that's so well respected technically. I mean, as an aside, every technically oriented person in this market that I have introduced your story to has bought the stock.
Yeah.
So it's a tremendous validation when you're using your own money, and you are using your own money to get behind the stock. So I'm very excited about it. I think it would be, as you say, a real hitting a lottery ticket to get the high grade in this next hole. But it's important, or holes. But it's important for people to realize, as I do, that the technical success is hitting the right kind of rocks. And that, for you, for your company, is the kind of result that I think for very few other companies in the junior space can actually get a market response of just getting the right geology and getting the right sniffs.
Yep, and size and scale, right? So the right geology, you combine that with the size and scale of a new belt that has, Abitibi potential, and a runway of targets to continue to test. And so, I think we're in this fortunate position where the markets have turned and the timing's been good with our, long-term strategic plans. And we're really just getting started, right? We're just ramping up. This is what our group's been doing for a very long time. The first company Brien and I built, a technical consulting firm. For over a decade and a half, we've been servicing the largest mining companies on earth, doing these types of programs. So when we focus on the technicals, we really do. We let the data drive our decision making. And that's why we're so eager to get all this data in from last year. We're going to be able to layer up the drilling data from all 4 targets we've drilled in the last 4 years, combining that with the various regional geophysics. Now that VTEM survey, that's going to allow us to see undercover, right? So the beauty of these airborne VTEM surveys is they give you geophysical characteristics of the rock that can stretch down to 500 meters. And when you look at these big belt systems that are near vertical, that's huge. And that'll help us really narrow in on certain things, certain features, structural features, and potentially, conductive units and things like that are illustrative of potential. And so when we see those things potentially aligning with what we've mapped at surface as prospective targets, that's where these things get a lot more you can more rapidly focus the drilling dollars, and you can make sure those drilling dollars are spent wisely.
Because you can get drilling dollars.
And you can get drilling dollars, right?
Yeah.
Where we're finally in that market. And thankfully, I'm very, very, a lot of gratitude to our shareholders, our incredible group of shareholders, because we have had that ability over the last 5 years to close financings, to raise capital, and really empower our technical group, right? So the ability to have the database we have and to have the targets we have has been because we have such a great execution team. Our group is I feel so fortunate to work with the folks I work with. But at the same rate, our ability to close capital in these hard times has put us in this position we're at today. And we're very fortunate and ready to kind of, just see how quickly we can drill things out.
Yeah, Rob, when I tell people what to look for when they're looking for a junior mining investment, I always tell them people and property. And for people, there's not a better technical group than what you bring to bear. I mean, your group does work for all of the majors and has for many years, and it's highly respected in the industry. So from the people standpoint, you couldn't have a better team working. From the property standpoint, what's the size of the prize? I've never seen a prize of this much size, the potential that is you're bringing to bear. So it's not surprising that you have attracted so many smart investors and long-term investors and strong investors, myself included. I tend to have a sense of when a company has really turned the corner and the big discovery is coming up, and I have that sense with Relevant right now. So good luck. Thank you for giving me the update and everyone else, and looking forward to another great year of exploration.
Yeah, well, thank you, Brien. Thanks for coming to wonderful Stillwater, Minnesota, and enjoying this cool town. And I'm really excited for 2026. It's going to be a fun year for the group. We're going to do more drill. We're going to see more rocks than we've ever seen in the last 4 years, and that's really exciting to a group like us. It's going to start painting a picture and telling a pretty clean story. So yeah, we're excited about that.
I'm already a happy shareholder. I expect to get a lot happier.
All right, thanks Brien.
So much.